Welcome back to the Road Dog Project. This is Don Muzquiz and my canine co-host Leon. Thanks to Celebrity Coaches, we are back with part 3 of our conversation with touring audio engineer BUFORD Jones. We jump back in where BUFORD is discussing his time with Eric Clapton.
We did quite well. I think there was some, I really look back on that, I think I could have been mixing Eric still. And
Yeah.
really, I can't mix everybody all the time, but
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
a lot of them that I would like to stay with longer, but I think there was a certain party in that group. It just broke my heart to, whenever some things come down, I kept getting told by the road manager of the tour that Eric was displeased with the guitar sound. And I go, hey, man, that's my job.
Yeah.
Let me talk to him. Oh, he don't want to talk about technical stuff. He don't like talking about technical stuff. And I said, what?
Yeah.
This man, as long as he's played guitar, doesn't even his own instrument.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, if you've ever noticed, his guitar tech always goes out and changes his guitar settings. I said, are you implying that Eric Clapton doesn't know bass from treble and the volume knob on an amplifier?
Right.
And he says, well, he just doesn't like that stuff. He doesn't like talking shop. Well, how can I fix this problem?
Yeah.
You don't like it. You telling me I can't go talk to him?
Yeah.
I was highly disappointed with that.
Sure.
So we tried different things of putting more guitar in the monitors. That just creates an ambient
Yeah.
thing that's not direct and well controllable.
Was he basing this off of recordings? Was he hearing recordings, or just was this the live show?
No, I think these are live comments. Live comments. And it's kind of kept going on for a couple of days. And we had gone into Royal Albert Hall for 14 nights. I think he'd already done 21 nights there the year before or something. It's 14 nights, Royal Albert Hall. It's a tough room to mix in. And at the third show, I get this again. And I said, let me go talk to him. If I can figure this out, I'll know what to do. And it can be easily remedied as far as I can see. This is a no-brainer. No one's talking to Eric. Well, then what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Sort of get a little agitating. And I said, he talks to me when I pass him in the hall. Am I supposed to ignore him?
Yeah.
And he's not that type of person.
Right.
I have seen the entertainers that walk in, everybody's got to look away and step away and go somewhere in a room. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah.
But Eric's not that way.
Right.
And it really affected me. You know, it's like I want him happy, and that's what I'm here for. That's number one. So next night I get at the hotel, this tour manager says, well, you won't need to come to the venue tonight. We're going to let one of the other guys mix it, and we just want to hear what somebody else is going to do with it. I said, you got my plane ticket? No, we want you to wait a little bit, but we're just going to let another guy mix it tonight.
Wow.
And I want to say again, you got my plane ticket? Get it.
Yeah.
And so I stood there and went back to my room, ended up calling Nick Mason of Pink Floyd. He just chatted for a while. I love Nick, and he makes me laugh, and I just want a little bit more high-spirited thing, but
Yeah.
anyway, and I waited there, and so sure enough, about 2 a.m, I get a call, and no, we need you back down here tomorrow. And I go, that was the time to say,
Yeah.
let's double my salary then.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, let's double my salary. It's irrelevant what I'm making, but you know, so I go down and do this, and one thing that I told the road manager to please pass on to that road crew, don't change anything, just mix it differently. If he's not hearing his guitar enough, turn the guitar up.
Yeah.
You've already got a great foundation of the drums.
Yeah.
You've already got a great foundation of everything else. Just mix it differently. Well, of course, they didn't do that. So they started from ground one, went through the whole thing. on a console that was not recallable. And I come in that evening and had two members of the band come up to me and tell me. They said last night was the most horrific night we've ever dealt with.
Wow.
They say just screaming feedback that we haven't heard before in a way that we hadn't heard before. And went into the detail. I can't remember all the detail. Why weren't you here? And I was told to stay home.
Yeah.
What? I don't know. I was
Yeah.
told to stay home. And then, so I had to go through a pretty extensive sound check, get the thing close to where I had it, and we did that, and went on. And Eric come up to me after the sound check before the show and said, I guess I owe you an apology. And I said, not really. And he says, well, we just didn't know what to do. Now, there's a good key word in there, but I said, no apology. I says, but I hope you learned something. That was it. I hope you gained something.
Yeah.
You know, it might have been painful to you. I've heard that it was. And he said it was. And I said, then I hope something was
Yeah.
benefit from it all. And we left, and the musician that came up to me that had remarked, and I really respect this guy, I just choose not to use his name.
Sure.
But he told me that he found it unusual, and he said that he was talking to me, and he said that Eric had mentioned that you never come in his dressing room like the other sound mixer did, and would come in and talk to him every night. I don't think anything broke my heart more than anything I ever saw. To be sit there and told by a road manager, don't go into his room talking shop. I don't think he really told me that I couldn't go in there. No, he just don't talk shop.
Well, he's part of another story. You've got to tell us about your time with George Harrison. Eric was on that as well.
George Harrison. Yeah, I'll tell that one. I mean, I'll tell it like it is.
Sure.
Things that happened, and we can talk a lot of good stuff, but I don't mind talking about the stuff that's not so pleasant, but you learn from it and do what you do. When I got the call for this whole Eric Clapton thing, it was the George Harrison thing. So George Harrison had, he and Eric very good buddies. So they, I think Eric had talked George into going out on a tour because he hadn't been out in a very long time, and 16 years I was told, and Bangladesh. And so I think he had a lot of issues and a lot of problems. John Lennon's death, this and that, reviews that he didn't care for, this and that. He had a kind of a negative attitude toward touring. And so anyway, put all this together, and I fly to London to this rehearsal studio I was talking about. And you got a picture of this room pretty much like this. And is this getting on camera, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll work. Entranceway comes back here, stage here, and a pretty long room, front house console there. There you go. I had a reduced PA, but it was very significant and worked very well. Shoko, I had the Harrison console set up, and wow. And then first day, all the band came in. Nathan East comes right up, shakes my hand, says welcome, because they have to come in this way to go up there. So whether they had to do it or whether they were doing it on their own, I don't know. Then Eric came in, called me by name, shook my hand. Nice to meet you. Okay. So Steve Ferroni was playing the drums. He come in and said hello. Everybody introduced Greg Fillinganes, Michael Jackson, many other things, and then Chuck Leavell from Allman Brothers, and more and more and more. And then Ray Cooper, I think is the only one I really didn't know, and he did a lot with Elton John. So, at any rate, they'd all come in and going up to the stage after they said hello and getting their stuff ready and this and that. This is day one. So in walks George, and George just goes right straight up to the stage and works. That's fine. So I'd like to have met him in a similar fashion, but just wasn't nobody around to introduce you. And I was thrilled to work with the Beatles. I'd heard great stories about Paul McCartney and Ringo, and wow, here's my chance of working with a Beatle, and this would be great. So they got up there and they played. And there was a very large recording system that had been put together by the engineer before me. And it's quite nice, a DAT system, and hooked it all up where we could put in some microphones and delay it appropriately and make it sound really pretty good. And I thought, this is great. I'll learn this material real fast this way. So the band gets up and starts playing, and I took a break about an hour into it, if that. And Steve Ferroni, the drummer, came up to me and said, "Are you taping this? Because I really need this to listen to, these different arrangements that we're doing." And I said, "Nobody really told me I could. I'd like to get permission of that first."
Yeah.
I said, "I'm glad to, and I like to work that way. But I haven't received any permission. I'm kind of a little reluctant." He said, "Well, I got to have these tapes." So he said he went over and talked to the manager. Tour manager come over to me and tell me, "Yeah, it's okay." The road manager, assistant business manager, and he come over and said, "Yeah, just do it. Just keep a log of the recordings and where they're going." And I said, "Fine." I had a little spreadsheet going on the PA, and I'd label these tapes as I would make them, and then who I gave them to and where they are, and then I'd keep them, as I've done on many tours. So anyway, they go off, and I start recording. So the end of the night finished, and Steve come out to the console to get the tape. So I gave it to him. All the band left. George left. I don't meet George. And the crew were all around talking, and so fine. Day 2 happens, come in, several of the band says hello, comes up to the stage, and then here comes Nathan East and Chuck Leavell. And they say, "Man, we listened to that tape last night. It's unbelievable." And I thought, wow,
yeah,
great, I'm glad you like it. They say, "Man, it was really outstanding. It sounded great." And I said, "You bake the cake, I just serve it. It's you. It's you. It's not me, it's you." And they go, "Wow, keep up the great work." And I said, "Thank you for having me here." So they went up and started doing their work again. Well, day 2 finishes, I record again. Same exit. Steve gets the tapes, they leave, George leaves, nothing's done. Here comes day 3. Everybody comes in, thumbs up on the work. They go to the stage. Here comes George, straight to the stage. He had no manager with him. He had nobody representing him, no bodyguards, no nothing.
Wow.
He drove down there in his own car, and he got out, walked right up. So here it is, day 3, and we're taking a break. I think we rehearsed from about 1 in the afternoon till roughly 9 at night, and we'd take a dinner break, And after the dinner break, I saw Nathan East. Picture this. Up on the stage, we got George Harrison, Eric Clapton, and Nathan East, and they're all talking to each other. And a lot of times I keep seeing Nathan pointing out at the console. I don't know what they're saying. I guess I could have put on the phones and eavesdropped, but I didn't. I don't know what they say. I know what they say because Nathan told me later. And he was saying to George, "Have you heard Buford's tapes? They sound amazing." Just general talk,
sure,
that we all do. And so about this time that they're doing this and pointing to me, this business manager's come up to the console and just walking around. We're in idle moment, and he just walked up to the console, and I says, "Hey man, for what it's worth, I've been here 3 days and I have not met George." He says, "You got to be kidding." I said, "No, no introduction has been set up. I'm a little bashful," and I said, "I haven't met him." And he said, "Well, come on." So he got off the console, and as soon as he got off the console and I started to follow him, here come George, direct beeline out to the console. staring me down, just coming out to the console. And I stood up and I put out my hand and say, "Hi, George," and I didn't even get that much out. "How'd you?" And he just started screaming at me. And there were people, the whole entire organization. There was no outsiders in that room at all, but it was all the management, crew, band, staff. Spotlight. You're under the spotlight.
Might as well.
Everybody was witnessing it. And he's just screaming at me, and to the best of my recollection, he says, "You can't be taping me. I will have your things,
Yeah.
and I will take you to court. If there is one bootleg record at all, I will sue you, and I will have your..."
Yeah.
But he's screaming this.
Yeah.
And he says, "You're going to sign a contract right now." And, I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. I said, "I'm very sorry. I know I should have come to you first." But I said, "I'm sorry. I don't know what to say, but I'm sorry." And he turned around and walked off. He was furious. And then he turned around and came back in a little second wave of it. He said, "I've been screwed around too many times. I'm not going to be screwed around again." And I was done. He said, "Give me the tapes." And I only had 2.
Yeah.
So I gave him the tapes. He took them. And how embarrassing that was. And he went up to the stage, and they played some more, then they left. And when they left, it's just us crew. And most of the crew was British. And a couple of the crew knew George from working with Eric, and they knew him. And they were talking, we were all talking like, what in the world happened? And why did that happen like that? And one of them was saying, well, George hadn't been out in 16 years. And not to say that, you know, he just wasn't used to touring and touring personnel to a large level.
Right.
And he
didn't know that you were
one
part
of them
it.
had said it that he probably didn't put it together that you were part of the crew. In other words, he might have assumed all these people were coming in with equipment, and here a guy just rolled in a recording system, was going to record him, and when I got what I'd done, I'll get up and get out.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen that. You've seen that at live concerts.
Absolutely.
Where the local radio station will come in, and they want a recording for the first 2 songs and they leave.
Yeah.
Well, I think if that's what he thought I was doing.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, as bizarre as that is, I think that's what was on his mind. You know, that he thought I had just rolled in unannounced and I'm recording this thing and never made a contract to do it.
Yeah.
You know. So he walked back up there, and this is terrible. Well, no, this is the night we're discussing this among us. So day 4, I hadn't been sent home. I took that recording set up, and I put the case together and shoved it in the back of the room. And I'm sitting here working on a computer facing this way, typing notes, not knowing if I'm going to be there much longer. A couple people come in and said hello. And then I hear this British voice behind my shoulder that had walked in, and I'm just typing, and he says, well, how's the taping going today? I can't do it in a British voice. I'm too Texan. But how's the taping going today? And I thought it was one of the crew messing with me, and I whipped around, and it's George. And he was just ear to ear grinning. And I said, I packed the case up. It's over there. It's in the corner. It's going back to America as far as I'm concerned. And he said, well, you know, maybe we thought about it. I think he had a talk with Eric that night and some others. And he said, well, maybe we do want to record. What do you got to do to set it back up? I just roll it over here, plug it in, and hit the red button. He says, we'll do it. And he says, we just keep really good track of where these tapes go. And I said, okay. I think he finally put it together that I worked for it.
Yeah.
You know, I was a sound mixer and sound engineer, and so he goes up and plays, and then the next day he comes in. It's day 5, I guess, and he comes in, and I was still what to think about this guy. And when he walked in, he had a platter. Only people like that come up with these things. If you've seen Japanese bonsai trees,
Right.
or a little thing like this, he had these little vases that had these little teeny miniature live flowers in it. They were teeny.
Wow.
And wow. And he had a platter of them. And he went up to the stage and gave each of the band one. And then he walked out the console and he gave me one.
Well, there you go.
Oh, wow. How cool is that? And they died in a few days, you know, but it's something that I'd give anything to have that. You know, I'd just give anything to have that. I don't know where he got them. I've never seen that sort of thing before, but I'm sure they exist as those things do. So we began to, as days go on, speak more and more. So when the show, the way it would run is that it was the George Harrison show, but in the middle of it, Eric Clapton would play 3 of his songs. So George would exit, give him a break, and he'd play 3 Eric Clapton songs, and then he comes back up and more Beatles and George Harrison songs. So, well, when Eric, there's no dressing rooms here or anything, so when Eric would get up there to do his 3 songs, George would walk out to the console and sit there with me, or sometimes we'd take a little break after Eric has finished their things, and that's when we would talk a little bit. And it's so funny that we were sitting there one day talking. Actually, Ringo Starr came in one day and played drums, so I got to mix 2 Beatles on stage at once. But anyway, I was talking with him, talked to Ringo. But anyway, I've talked with George. And George, I had heard that we were doing this for a Japanese tour only. That's all he agreed to go to. Eric was going to play Europe, or the UK, but George was only going to do Japan. He did 13 dates, I think, 10 to 13, all sold out. 2 nights at Tokyo Dome, I think it was. And so I said, I heard in the grapevine that you're going to make an album of this show. And he says, yes, we are. And I said, well, I know we had a little bit of an issue the other day, but I think we got it straightened out. And I said, you know, I said, do you have your engineer to do it? He said, no. Just like that, no. And I said, you know, for what it's worth, I've done a little bit of that sort of thing. I throw my card in the hat.
Yeah, sure.
And he says, really, who have you done? I says, well, I've done some things with Linda Ronstadt, some King Biscuit Flower Hour, to a few live shows, and this with Pat Benatar. And I said, I've done a few with, there at your old stomping ground. I mixed Pink Floyd's Delicate Sound of Thunder at Abbey Road. And he says, really? And I said, yeah. He says, where do you live? And I said, I live in the U.S., but yeah. I said, I can fly. Don't worry about me being far away.
Yeah.
And he said, well, that's cool. That's cool. And he says, he was really rolling this on. And he goes, how do you see taping this? And I says, well, at that time, a Mitsubishi X800 was we thought the digital machine to handle the job. That'd been out there in a lot of projects. And I said, you know, a Mitsubishi 32 track, I can have the one machine and I think get everything down on 32 tracks. And he goes, he'd been playing with the Wilburys, you know, a few years before. And he said, oh, Tom Petty says you can't use digital. Digital sucks. And I said, oh, well, of course. If you say that, and Tom Petty says, oh, well, digital sucks. I said, well, I can get a 24 track, 2-inch tape. And we can do it that way, but with 24 tracks without syncing this thing up and being a madhouse, I says, you know, I'm going to have to condense the drums down the 2 tracks and all that sort of stuff. And he said, 24 tracks? This is the biggest question I ever had put to me in my life. He said, 24 tracks? He said, the Beatles, we did albums of 4 tracks. What do you need 24 for?
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah.
The Beatles and your albums, okay, well, I'll do it on 16. I can do it on a 2-inch 16, which is the best tape width of any machine. And then again, he said, well, we did stuff on 8 tracks. And I said, oh, okay, let me do a 16-track layout for you, and you'll see that we have to combine a lot of stuff. We're going to have to combine the vocals, the background vocals, down to 2 channels. And So anyway, we talk it all over and done. And a few days later, I found out from the manager, is Eric Clapton's manager, Roger Forster, and that the recording in Japan had already been set up. Oh. They already had the engineer. Oh, it had already been contracted and been done. Just that Roger Forster had done it.
Yeah.
And George didn't know.
Wow.
And so I came that close to getting to do that. Now, John Harris mixed that album, recorded it, and mixed it. And John's a good friend. And I saw him afterwards, after that all took place. And I asked him, I says, man, what was it like? And he said, oh, it's really cool. And he said, on the mix down, he went to London and stayed at George Harrison's mansion, and they mixed it there in the studio. Oh,
unbelievable.
Well, congratulations to you, but I said, I'm going to come close. I would have liked to have had that one on my list, but just the experience would have been nice. But no, we got along wonderfully well. I think once it was explained to him, the same thing with Prince. It was an odd introduction.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go up making excuses. And in fact, if it wouldn't have been for Eric and I'm assuming the members of the band saying something to George,
yeah,
I might not have never finished the tour, and I might not have ever done it.
Well, exactly.
And on the list, so we had a good time.
Yeah.
And that was just great hearing Eric Clapton's band playing Beatles songs and George Harrison songs, and they did such nice renditions. And of course, those guys are highly qualified.
Absolutely.
And yeah,
unbelievable. There's so many things and so many people we could talk about. What about James Taylor in Central Park? Did you do that?
Oh, wow. I think that was one of the largest ones we knew of at the time. I think Venice was bigger than that for me, but yeah, we couldn't see the end of people. I don't know how many people actually came to that because you couldn't see the ends of it.
Right.
And one interesting thing to the sound mixer that goes out to the console when this is the headline act, you got this in control. Same thing, or you hope you have it in control. And same thing with Venice and Pink Floyd. That were James Taylor. I mean, it's just like whatever they were getting ready for the house lights to go down. It's just like, just let me hear one note. Let me hear one note. I'm sitting there twitching and fidgeting. But as soon as I hear the one note, everything's working. Okay, fine. Let's rock now. Let's play. I want to play music.
Yeah.
It got that way with several artists that, I need a seatbelt. Tie me down. I need a seatbelt, because I want to rock too.
Yeah.
And, but with James, what an incredible musician. What a wonderful, wonderful person. I've never seen him agitated or to any way. Just always so smooth and mellow and such a great player. And because I play fingerstyle, I really admired what he plays. And I think a lot of people don't realize how good James is as a guitar player. He doesn't highlight that. He does in a way when he starts a song out in solo and you get a pretty good idea. But James is an incredible guitar player. I love his website where it shows him playing the camera inside the guitar, looking at his fingers, the way he works. Oh, it's outstanding.
Unbelievable.
And he would show me a few licks here and there. And when I did that, I had such pride in his music and representing him. And he was just another wonderful night after night. And to watch and witness his audiences, that they listened. I mean, people listened. That brings back to an argument, you turn the PA up louder in cases, well, chances are people that are talking and murmuring and they're going to be louder.
Yeah.
You get it down to a nice soft level and you hear silence in the room.
Yeah.
Because they're dialed into the music now without being obstructed by. Now, I'm a rocker. Yeah, my hair was down I turned up ZZ quite loud. and a lot of others. Pink Floyd was quite loud at moments.
Yeah.
But James, we kept a real civilized level. Keep the power in there, but keep it listenable. So I love to hang with him. We got to play around with some guitars once, and I think where our real bonding took place, if I'm not wrong, is where I was watching him play Takamine guitars that just come out roughly 74, 75, 76. It's roughly in that area. I might be 2 or 3 years off. I don't know. And or of popularity anyway. And I had played one, and I think I had one, and then also worked with another one. It was the most uniform sound to pick up on that Takamine, especially the finger picking that I'd heard. It was a very unique design, and all the early Takamines had that model in it. So when he was playing his, at that time in the mid-70s, was a White Book. I forget his first name. He's in California. He made a guitar for Emmylou Harris, Linda Ronstadt, I think, James Taylor, and several others, but I don't think he produced mass sales of guitars, but he made them for them. Beautiful, stunningly beautiful, and nice to play. I got to play it a couple of times. Well, we had drawers in a whole work box backstage of every kind of pickup that's ever been heard at that time. Frapp, Marcus Berry, all these different pickups that you could snap on the hole, and this and that. And I just couldn't find it. And we would try something different all the time. James was always willing to work with it. He'd come down early and try another one. Let's try this one. Can't get this. And it kind of all started, and too, it didn't get started. It was the way it narrowed it down. And I was telling him one night after the show, and I said, I really watch your thumb, and I'm not hearing your bass patterns whenever you're going from string to string because they're not uniform. And he goes, "You're watching my thumb?" Yeah. And he was, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah. And I want to hear those thumb patterns." And that's why I could hear the high notes, but I don't hear the thumb patterns, and blend it in. He thought that was amazing that you're listening like that. And I said, look, I said, "Have you heard of a Takamine?" And he said, "A Taka what?" So even to James, he hadn't heard of them. And I said, "A Takamine." And he said, "No." And I said, "Would you play one if I got it out here?" So we were in New York City playing at Hofstra University, and I had since good friend Fred Wallachy at Westwood Music in L.A. And I called up Fred, and I said, "Fred, do you have any Takamines laying around?" He said, "Yeah, I do." And I said, I want James Taylor to play one. And I said, "Would you send me one?" And I said, "I need it FedExed. I need it here in the morning." And he said, "Yeah, I'll get on it and I'll do it." But okay. Next morning, concierge came up, guitar, and I opened it up. And I said, "What? This guitar couldn't cost $79, by the looks of it."
Yeah.
And I called up Fred. I think I'm going to hand after James is playing this incredibly beautiful and well-built guitar. And I called up Fred, and I said, "Fred, maybe you got me wrong." I said, "This is not for me. This is for James Taylor." He said, Buford, did you play it?" I said, "No." He said, "Play it and plug it in." He says, "I went through all the Takamines I had." And he said, "That's the sweetest playing and the best sounding. They all sound the same pretty much." But he said, "That's the one." I said, "Okay." So I took it down the gig, called up James, and I says, "Can you come down early? I got this Takamine guitar, and I thought you might want to play it while we're setting up." He said, "Sure, I'll be right down." And he was. And he came in and picked that guitar up. I kind of explained, "This may not look like the real thing, but it's Takamine." He picked it up, and we couldn't get him off the stage.
Wow.
He was playing, it seemed like everything he ever knew. We'd piped it back through the monitors, of course. So I went out front, and I said, "Man, that is the best I've ever heard."
Yeah.
His fingers.
Yeah.
And so he played through it all, and in fact, to the point where we were going, "James, you're going to have to leave now. We got the opening act we got set up for you. You should have to." Okay?
Get him off stage.
So I think the the project was for a while to think about how could we get that pickup out of that guitar into his white book, you know.
Yeah.
But we did some exploration and saw that it's quite complex pickup, and between he and I, we certainly weren't going to do it, and we could both work on guitars to a degree, but no, you know. So I don't know whatever happened to that, but
that listening was from your playing. That's why you were able to pick up on that, you know. Your classical guitar training, correct?
Yeah, I still keep my nails long, and I play. I don't play as much as I did, but I studied classical guitar in college, and only the last semester I kicked myself that I enrolled for the class last semester I was there. I think I could have been pretty good at it, because most of the students had never picked up a guitar before. They didn't even know the names of the strings. You know, you come in and you're going to take this up. But I had background in it. My dad wouldn't let me play with a pick. He made me play with my fingers. Yeah. So then when I went to classical guitar, I could have done well with it, but I didn't.
We could go on and on with incredible artists that you work with. Is there somebody that you didn't get to work with that you wanted to?
Yeah, that's a good question. I get a lot of people asking me, well, who haven't you worked with? There's quite a few. And, well, one that comes to mind that I always wanted was Elton John, because I just love his music and always have. And it was one of the first concerts that I saw when he did was the album. I think it was his second album. It was called 11/17/70. It was the date, November 17, 1970. He played at State Fair, and that was another show that brought the house down. Yeah. And I go, and I wasn't even mixing then. See, so, but I was so thrilled with that show, and then his albums, and watching him play, his musical ability. I just still think he's just
absolutely still doing it.
Yeah,
still doing it.
And I always wanted to mix him, but Clive Franks has always mixed Elton, except for a couple of short durations, and it was a very strong Clare Brothers account, and cards never fell my way, or I wouldn't have hesitated. I would have been out with it, but because I think we would have been a great match. But Clive was a great match for it too, and what I've heard on the shows that I've seen Elton do, and so that's one I wanted to do. Another one was In Excess.
Oh, wow.
I really liked their stuff when that was coming out, and I felt that I could contribute again. I want to contribute. I want to do what needs to be done, but wow, I like that kind of rock. Really good, clean, syncopated, just really good rock. Other one was, and that I passed on, that I'll kick myself.
I was going to ask you about who you turned down.
Who did I turn down? There was, I think, 3. And the worst case that I did for myself was Journey. And I got the call, I think it was roughly late 70s. I think it's about the time period I left Shoko, and which had been 1980. And I got the call from their tour manager, production manager, and he said, Buford, I've seen your shows and named off a lot of artists, and we want you, this band wants you mixing this upcoming tour, and it's going to be an all-stadium tour. I think it was their first all-stadium. And he said the album is going to be doing extremely well, and he said whoever mixes the live show will mix the albums too. And I said, yeah, I've heard that before, and it's never quite worked. Pink Floyd come off with that, but at that time, it's, I said, yeah, okay. But I was working with Linda Ronstadt at the time that we're discussing this. And as I said, Peter Asher and that organization was first class throughout. So I went, Bubba, I'm fine, man. I said, I'd love to work with Journey. I love what they're doing, but I said, I got a great gig, and I think I can't make it. He said, all right. He says, we're going to offer a lot of other things too, and I didn't even, okay. So I think about a week later, he calls me back and he said, "Would you reconsider?" And he said, you know, he says, "We'll really take care of you well, and you will be working on these records, and whoever's mixing the albums are going to be mixing the tours." And I said, you know, it's a good combination. Greg Ladani and I had discussed that once, where Greg, when he was doing Stevie Nicks and Jackson Browne, Toto, Greg wanted a partnership where we could take these acts and we could sit in for each other. Greg wanted me to teach him what I knew about live sound, and he wanted to teach me what he knew about making records.
Right.
He was a Grammy Award winner. I thought it was an incredible idea that we never really got to capitalize on.
Yeah.
So anyway, Journey has said this a second time, and actually a third time. And if you're not going to take this, they said, I don't mean this in said, if you're not going to take this, we're going to give it to somebody that you've worked with before. And I said, he told me his name, and I said, I know who you're talking about, and I like him a lot. And I said, he does great work, and he'll be really good for you. And I said, I'll give it some consideration, and I hate to leave this thing that I'm on. And, you know, they've got a pretty extensive thing coming up. I think we were fixing to leave for Japan, too, in an Australian tour. And I said, I just can't, you know, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
So there it was, and he said, well, if you're not going to take it, we're going to give it to this guy. And I said, okay. So several years went by as Journey continued to just
take off.
Take off and take off and take off and take off. And I was at a friend's house one night. We were just shooting the breeze, and he was a Journey fan, had every Journey record, all of them all lined up. It used to be fun to look at albums and the artwork.
Sure.
We don't have that anymore.
I
It's
know.
all condensed down where you can't read it anyway, but not much material.
Right.
But anyway, I was thumbing through his album collection, and I started seeing that name, not only engineered by, but produced by.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Set that one aside, grab another Journey. Engineered, produced by.
Wow.
I know what kind of dollars those mean. I know what that means.
Yeah.
And it's fine. And as I listened to them and I've seen them, met them,
Yeah.
we would have had a great time.
Sure.
We would have had a great time.
Yeah.
So-
The Peter Asher connection, though, with Lyndon Ronstadt and Jackson Browne and James Taylor, correct? Didn't he manage all of them?
Peter Asher?
Yeah.
Just James and Linda.
Okay. But that connection there kept you pretty busy.
Yes, it did. They had ping pong between them, and Peter was, he had ping ponged them kind of back and forth. So he'd never have Linda and James on the road at the same time.
Yeah.
And, you know, he had so many offers to do other groups, but I think he had his hands full to do those two professionally the way that he saw it done and what they needed. And that's where he put his concentration. So I'm here with you. And, yep, some cool stuff, but
Absolutely.
I'm here with you. So.
Well, in the last few years now, you've turned, I don't know, over the years, you've tried to find a way to stay home a little more, and you were working for Myers, and you've done a lot of educating. You've done a lot of seminars and workshops and things like that. Has that been pretty fulfilling for you?
I was equally amazing as touring with the big name artist, and it was clear that they could use me from the connections that I had worked for at that point 40 plus years with artists, that I could be a tour liaison for Meyer Sound. And so there are some really people with incredible educations and knowledge, especially when it comes to manufacturing and producing really accurate and precision sound systems. So anyway, they contacted me, and I had just finished a Faith Hill tour, and they asked me to come on board, and kind of as once again, I saw it immediately. They wanted me to sell speakers, and I was going like, I'm not a sales guy.
Yeah.
I'm not a sales guy.
Right.
I play music, and I turn knobs to play it, and that's what I do. That too took a couple of phone calls to finally give into. And because I'd heard of Meyer Sound, I'd never really used them. I had tremendous respect for what I knew about the equipment, and so I said, yeah, let's do this. I'll go on board. So I remember flying to San Francisco and going to the first sales meeting and meeting John and Helen Meyer and the sales group that was there at that time. And once again, I walk into a situation, I have no background, and I don't know what to do. And they welcomed me tremendously, and it was so nice. And whenever we kind of finished with everything and they went back to their work, and we all had lunch together, and then he gave me a tour and all that. And then, I left, and I'm going, well, who do I answer to, and what am I supposed to do? Just do what you do. It took me a while to understand that. There's a certain gray zone, I would call it, where you fall kind of in between things, and that's what I was a liaison. Yeah. So there wasn't a bunch of liaisons there. So it's like, let's go out and get some engineers interested in gigs and using Meyer Sound, and the ones that are using it, get information from them so that we can improve on it. And, yeah, really? That's all I got to do? So sure, and then I decided, well, then I saw that they represented Montreux Jazz Festival every year, which I think most people, unless you've been there, don't realize what an incredible concert that is for 21 nights. And so here I end up going there, and we, I say, well, if it's okay, I'd like to go to Montreux and stay a couple, 3 weeks. Well, absolutely, sure, go to, we do a nice hotel, and yeah, let us know how it all works out. Okay. So it took me a little bit, and then I began to see, and that's what I would begin to do, is to entertain. I don't try to go up to people that are unaware of Meyer Sound and shove it down their throat. I know this approach too well, and it puts me off quick as can be.
Yeah.
Don't tell me it's the greatest thing in the world. Let me decide that. But secondly, is just that sales approach turns me off, and so I think that's what kept me rolling there. The 15 years was that the friends that I made and the people that I was with, if they want to talk about Meyer Sound, I'll talk about Meyer Sound with you, because I learned so much about it and its principles behind it. What's John's philosophies were, and I agree with him 100%. When I see some employees there that kind of bend the rules a little bit, or bend the intention of what's going on a little bit, to satisfy the client, will educate the client. They'll see it your way if you educate them in a way, and how they'll really produce from the equipment that you make if they operate it right. Well, again, you don't want to shove that down their throat either. You just want to say, have you tried this? And you want to try that. And what problems are you having where? And usually in most Meyer situations, we're not having any problems. Okay. It might be time and getting up the crew or something of the day or this or that issues and traveling, but very few about the system. They truly don't have any, they've got incredible support to begin with. So that's what I would do and continue to do. And I'd go out to Bonnaroo, rent a bus like this, and I'd just sit there at Bonnaroo and ask engineers who finish their gigs to come down and sit on the bus with me, and let's grill outside, make some steaks, and talk about it. How'd the gig go for you? We had a lot of equipment there too.
Yeah.
So how'd it go for you? What improvements can you see? Oh man, this is great stuff I ever mixed on. No, come on. It can't be. Come on. There's something about it that didn't quite work somewhere, and I want to know what that is.
Right.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
And they try to think of something technical to say, and I said, no, you don't need to say something really highly technical. Just tell me how we can improve to make this better. It's hard digging that kind of information out. Yeah. And that's how much I respect their product and the way I witnessed it being delivered and used. So it was wonderful. But I learned so much more about sound that I didn't know before, that I wished I had known.
Had.
I wished I'd have somehow met John Meyer somewhere in the early 70s and, become friends and stayed with him for life, even if I didn't work for his company. I see where he's coming from. I see it totally. But there's a certain amount of stubbornness that a lot of us engineers have. You get out and you do a few gigs and something goes well and something goes good, and you've just already embedded a process in your process that you're not going to change.
Right.
Hey, it all worked fine the other day. I don't want to hear anything about setting it up any differently. Well, okay. Now, everybody's not that way, but,
right.
It's like, try this approach. People, I'm one that I say the one thing that, of the many things that I would agree with John Meyer is an equal amplitude response and working with that response. It's like having monitors that you can trust in a studio. Well, in a PA, we've just amplified this situation to a huge field, but the speakers that I'm mixing on, and be it big line arrays or big point source systems, to me the same thing. This is just a big monitor. It needs to be tuned before I do it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be tuned to Steely Dan, as so many do it to, because Steely Dan's not playing tonight.
Right.
I got Faith Hill playing it tonight.
There you go.
If I want to play anything, I'll play one of my show tapes, because that's the experience that I had, and I can relate to that experience. And I joke of that often, but it seemed like Steely Dan
For a while.
how many times I do a tour and I'd run pink noise, and when I run pink noise, I give it a burst, I store it, and shut it off. And then I look at my storage, and then I say, okay, make some change to EQ, burst the pink noise, shut it off. And how many times you don't leave that pink noise on for an hour like everybody else does. And I go, I don't see the need in it myself, but
right.
Fine, if they do, fine. But I have a whole different approach to tuning the system. So that's called equal amplitude is called flat response, and most people don't like that word.
Right.
I don't hear, human ear doesn't like to hear flat. I'm not saying I want to give you a flat mix.
Right.
I'm just saying I want a mix on a flat system. If you don't put it that way.
Starting point.
Well, I do. I play some pink noise. And then what do you do after you play pink noise? Well, I play, some music. And then you alter the PA again, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're not mixing the flat.
Right.
And you don't get the idea behind it. Do you record your shows? No. There's a lot of engineers that say they don't want to do it, because I even heard a very reputable person in the industry that I sat on a panel with that included Bruce Jackson, and they were both so against listening to show tapes. And I'm going, I don't know where you guys are coming from.
Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of guys who've gotten fired from that. Well, I said, if they got fired from that, then they probably deserved it.
Yeah.
Shouldn't get fired from it. So that approach and listening to tapes, and if you understand, if you're mixing on a flat frequency response, it should transfer. And then you get control of the stage. So if the band wants to play at this level, that's fine, but can we tilt your amp back so I'm not getting so much direct sound out of your thing, Many guitar players think that the sound that they're playing out of their amp, blaring loud, be it Marshalls or whatever, is the sound that everybody's hearing in the arena.
Right.
Well, maybe you want it to be that way, but I can make it bigger if you give it to me.
Right.
You give it to me at less volume, I'll make it bigger than anything else in this room, but you got to give it to me at an appropriate level. Now, give it to me where your guitar sustains and sound the way you want it to sustain. So, I do that, and it's all worked out really good. So that's what we did, was tune to a flat frequency response. I started doing that in 1976 when David Bowie, where we were given a Nakamichi cassette tape recorder to record shows. And when I was recording those, I'd have a really great night in the arena, and I'd put on headphones and listen to that after the show. And I noticed there's no bass guitar on it. There's no kick drum. I'd hear tick, tick, tick. Wouldn't be this, wouldn't be that. The low end was completely detached. And it didn't take no rocket science. I just put it together. Hey, I'm tuning this PA with a lot of oomph in it.
Yeah.
and I'm playing back or off my voice, or I'm playing it from something. Again, I'm not singing tonight. Guys that can tune a PA from out in front of the house with a microphone, boy, that's something.
Yeah.
If the artist is going to come out and sing out at the front of the house, I could see you doing it then. But nonetheless, I want to do it to pink noise, and I'll tune it to a flat equal response. When I did that on David Bowie, is all I did was go to the crossovers, and I would turn them way down on the low end drive.
Yeah.
And now I found myself boosting the bass guitar on the mixer, boosting the kick drum, and in low frequencies. So I got it back to where I wanted. I got the big bass drum now back in the PA.
Yeah.
But now it's going to tape that way because I EQ'd the bass into it from the console, and the console spits out the image to all places it's going to. So now the tape, whoa, that's a lot better. That's
Yeah.
a lot better. That's
Yeah.
how I started it. That's how I started it.
Very nice.
And then when I saw that John Mayer believed in the whole philosophy of flat frequency response, I said, yeah, all right.
Now, most recently, you've been at Belmont, so you
Correct.
put a curriculum together for your mixing courses.
Live
Yeah.
sound mixing.
Yeah.
Advanced live sound mixing, I think is what we call it. And it's something that I really want to give back, and I really enjoy doing it. And I feel that I can explain it many times in a way that I use experiences. I don't use a textbook. But this started at Meyer Sound when they have an incredible education department. Brilliant instructors that do 2 and 3 day seminars. And I was seeing these, and they're all to do with, of course, physics and electronics, but it's and gear, and learning the best ways to get the best out of the equipment is what it's all about. They figure if the users understand it better, they'll get even better results.
Right.
And I saw that, and I thought one day, I said, you're telling us how to set up the PA and get the best out of it, but we're not talking about when the lights go down.
Yeah.
And we mix on
Right.
this system that you've just set up. I said, that'd be an incredible idea. Will you start a mixing class? So we called it the Mix Workshop. And Meyer Sound did not, for whatever reason, did not choose to put these into publications as you would have to go to the Meyer Sound website and explore around and in the education, and then you would see the classes, and they go on around the world.
Yeah.
So I think that's when I filled up 4 or more passports on the 5 that I already had then. And so these went great. I mean, from South America, Japan, Hong Kong School of Music, Tokyo School of Music, Germany, and at Pop Academy, great school there too, and Full Sail. I've done, I think, 3 talks at Full Sail, and they're 2-day talks.
Yeah.
And I would really enjoy that, and I hope that most of them did too. The response that I got back from it was very good from the people who attended it, and then used in actual circumstances. Why the Eric Clapton guitar mic routine.
Yeah.
Why that helped,
Sure.
I don't think you're going to find too much of stuff like that in a book, but I tried it, and if I did this and had him do that, then it worked. So I really enjoyed this, and it became the liaison I was still doing, but now just as much education, and still attending trade shows, which I see new equipment, which is great for the young people that want to get into it, even though they can be quite costly at times, and then they've reduced because of the virus and all of that. But it's great to attend these various conventions that happen every year, where you meet the people who build the stuff that you're looking at.
Yeah.
And you can see the new stuff, and then make your choice of what's going to work best for you. I made so many connections through that. So it's like I really enjoyed this to the point, and we did this there, and then after 15 years, I think I had served as much as I could, but actually, no, I was really scratching the surface. I think I really could have got started and done some wonderful things for Meyer. And but nonetheless, I decided, well, at that point, just reached 70, and you know, all good times got to come to an end one time or another. And I figured I would leave it on a good note, and I had such a successful and wonderful time in Meyer Sound, and I came back, and then I put in an application at Belmont University.
Uh-huh.
And I am a Christian,
Yeah.
and I thought for a Christian university, that's something that I did want to do. And I filled out a resume that took me 3 days, a application that took me 3 days. I even had a letter from Linda Ronstadt and a letter from Clint Black. And I said, if you want more, I'll be glad to get it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't hear anything from them. It just kind of went away. And I said, I'm fine. I'm fine. Let's start playing with my studio and trying to learn my studio. All these years I've traveled, I never even learned my own equipment. So I was looking forward to staying home. But at the same time, there was an event that came to at Belmont at the Curb Center of the Belmont musical students playing, and then the Belmont technical students doing all the equipment.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. It's just wonderful. I had gone down to help at my request of a good friend, and when I did, I met the dean of entertainment, and he and I went to his office and with a couple of the audio people, and we sat down and we talked, and Dean says, Buford, I'd just like to hear about what all you've been doing. So I tried to give him a little 45-minute thing. That's hard to do.
Yeah, exactly.
To sum it up, and he looked over and said, we're going to start a new class, and you call it anything you want, and we'll make it a legacy class, was my understanding. And I said, great. So we got it on and started teaching the next semester. Cap it at 12, and I just, wow. I was brilliant kids.
Yeah.
That have that passion and determination. It's not that I'm taking this because it'd be a good thing to do, and I like to do music, but no. And I said, if you've got that passion, if you've got that desire, well, then you will do it. And I've been blessed all my career. I look back at it, and I can't believe it. And as I told you, starting with Three Dog Night the way that I did in Choco, it's just been handed to me on a silver platter. But I like to think when I look back on it, it was my passion and desire to do it and do it well, that the artist saw this in me and somehow like to have it around. So at Belmont, I've enjoyed this very much, although we had to take it to online classes. And that's kind of like trying to teach somebody to drive a car without a car.
Yeah.
You got to have the gear to do it. But we really, I think, covered some good grounds, and the grades that I've read back have been very, very nice. I think what the students gained from the course, and I hope that will help them in their future. So I'm here as long as they want me to do that. I'll be glad to do that, and continue teaching and see these kids grow and jump into this. It's a wonderful world. It's a wonderful business when you're out there. The traveling is real difficult. I've always said to me that, the 2 hours of showtime, I'm in bliss, and the 22 other hours of the day are the toughest part for me to get along with. But, traveling A, B to C to D, but showtime, it just makes it all worthwhile. You have that great moments like playing a nice round of golf. You just want to do it. I want to do it again. I know I can do it. I want to do it again. And you keep doing it. But you got to love music. Music is part of you because, and I've noticed this in the students and what I'll ask. Now, I have seen some sound mixers that do very, very well that don't play an instrument. But if you do, it's a huge advantage. I think in understand the layering of instruments and how one instrument complements another. It's making sure that what you see is heard, but blending what a guitar pad and a keyboard pad does together to form a sound in their own, and putting those pieces of that puzzle together where all of that is heard, and yet keep it in perspective. You can't put things by faders on a console in a position and get up and walk away. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You are playing that instrument, and I am constantly manipulating faders, but I'm doing very small movements, and it's down to that. So it's like I said, I just kind of wanted to play guitar as a young man, and but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out. So I found the way to play my instrument with the band, and that was the traveling. So the education is great, and the kids, really young people, continue to get into that. It's a big world, and it's the thing that one thing I like to stress to the young people is that don't categorize yourself, especially when it comes to sound mixing, and say, well, I'm a live sound mixer. No, just say that you're a sound mixer.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to working in a recording studio or a broadcast studio and doing the final mixes, it's equipment made by different manufacturers, but it's still got EQ and bass and treble knobs and faders to turn levels up. It's the same.
Yeah.
You're putting together a musical formula.
I've kept you way longer than I intended to.
That's okay.
We got stuck in traffic for a while. Incredible career. Can't thank you enough for your time. What a treat it's been. Thank you so much, Mr. Buford Jones.
Thank you, Don, for having me here. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Be sure to come back to the channel for parts 1 and 2 of our conversation with Buford Jones. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, please give us a thumbs up, and we welcome your comments. Check out more of the Road Dog Project here on YouTube, and follow on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Come on, Leon.